episode 5, we're going to be talking about practice, skill retainment, frustration that occurs with the lack of progress. And I'm going to be splitting up practice into two parts. I'm going to be talking about how to gain new skills, how to set goals to gain new skills, and how to practice previously gained skills and deal with that skill retainment that I was talking about. I have some experience in training, I have some experience in instruction as well. It's mostly the practical side, not so much the theoretical side. And I'm not going to be using my hands much for this episode, so it's mostly going to be theory and me talking to the camera, so I hope you can bear with me through it. But I hope that this knowledge and this understanding of how to deal with new training and how to deal with acquiring new skills can be applied to lockpicking and hopefully help myself and some others out there. So when it comes to practice, as I said before, I want to split it up into two parts. I want to deal with actual learning of new skills, and we do that by setting goals, understanding the theoretical side, and then actually applying it in a practical sense. And I want to deal with mastering previously gained skills. Now, let's focus on dealing with new skills first. We're going to set goals. Now, I've set my goal on a particular lock. This ABUS 8540 is kicking my ass at the moment. I cannot open it, I can't SPP it, and I can't rake it. And this is my goal. I want to be able to SPP this lock consistently. To set a goal, I need to know that it exists. I need to know that whatever it is that I want to achieve, I want to be able to define it. For me, it's very simple. Open, SPP, done. Multiple times. That is my goal. So I know that it exists. I know it's possible. I know what it looks like when I've achieved that goal. So I know the end state. Now I need to figure out how to do that. But part one of setting your goals is understanding it exists, understanding it's achievable, also from my skill level, which is something I'm going to get to in a second. And I understand what the end state is, what it looks like once I've achieved my goal, so I can set my next goal. Now, I just mentioned it's an achievable skill. It's an achievable skill level for me. It's something that I should be able to do within a reasonable time. Now, that is something that's very important. I could have also set myself the task of being able to open a Medico sidebar lock. Now, that's something that's really not realistic for me at the moment. It's something that is way beyond my skill level, and it's something that'll make me have to skip many steps of basic skills to get to that final end state. I'm going to have to learn so much in one go to be able to achieve that it's not really practical or achievable. How do I know if something is achievable or not? How do I know that this Medico sidebar lock is not for me? Well, it comes part from your theoretical knowledge, it comes part from understanding what you're trying to achieve and the hobby that you've endeavored in, and it also comes from asking others. You're going to have some contact with other people and people with a higher skill level than yourself to ask them whether or not your goals are achievable. There are a lot of helpful people out there that'll be willing to let you know what would be a good course of action, what would be a good goal, but it's also a great way to bounce off the goals that you've decided upon, whether they are realistic for you or not. When it comes to setting goals, in lockpicking, there are many different goals that you could set. Now, as I said, I've focused on a certain lock, a particular lock. You could choose the same. What you could also do is choose a certain type of lock. You could focus on the speed with which you open the lock if you want to be a quicker lockpicker, like a competitive lockpicker. You could deal with the type of tools. You might want to specialize in a certain tool or a certain type of hook that you haven't used before. You could look at techniques, whether you want to be able to rake better or whether you want to improve your SPP skills. Whether you want to use top of keyway tension, bottom of keyway tension. There are many different ways and many different aspects that you can look at when it comes to lockpicking on which you can base your own goals. After setting your own goal comes the practical side of practicing. The actual application, the actual using your physical attribute, your physical body to do something, to learn something. Now, the biggest part of practical application is concentration. You need to be actively involved in what you're doing. You need to understand what you're doing, but when you're doing it, it needs to be the only thing you're doing. If you're sat on the sofa watching TV with a lock in your hand and a pick inside, that's not concentrating on the task at hand. That is not going to get you the progress or the improvement that you're looking for. It might be something you enjoy doing, in which case it's fine. But don't be disappointed or don't expect progress if that's the way you're going about it. Of course I've done it as well, but I really don't walk away from that expecting an open lock in my hands. So concentrate on what you're doing. Really focus on what you're doing. I'm not talking about meditation or anything crazy. But what I'm talking about, if that's what you want to do, if that's your goal, that's your task at hand, then make sure that's what you're working on, and that you're not distracted or doing other things or trying to do it as a byproduct of a different activity. Which also brings us to paying attention. You need to pay attention, and concentration and paying attention are two different things. Concentrating to me is paying attention to the task at hand, where when I speak about paying attention, I'm talking about understanding the periphery. Now, understanding the periphery means paying attention to what's around you, not necessarily in the room, but within lockpicking it means that I've watched other people pick this same lock. I've seen what they do, what they use, I've read about it, I've understood what type of physical attributes the lock has, I understand what's going on inside, which again touches the theoretical side of things, but it's called paying attention to everything around you, the situational awareness around what you're doing. So I would say that's equally important as concentrating to the task at hand, because it gives you every other little bit of information that you need to achieve your goal. You have this physical aspect of actual feedback through your hands into your brain, your eyes, let's give it a name. But the understanding of what's going on around that, combined with this actual physical activity, will be what gives you the progress and what gets you to your goal. But be aware that that does take time. The muscle memory and the understanding the feedback you're getting through your fingers, it takes time. It's something that you're going to have to learn, and it's something that you can't rush. You simply can't, even if you want to, even if you're very good. Your body and your mind, your brain needs a certain time to learn something. It needs to have done it so many times. It needs to have understood what the feedback means. So it takes time. It's the way it is. Now, I've mentioned the theoretical side before, and I'm not a very theoretical person myself. I don't enjoy studying. I was never one for school. But you have to read. You're going to have to understand what's going on. You've got to read. You've got to watch. There's a wealth of information out there. There's articles, there's books, there's YouTube channels. There's many guys out there with a shitload of knowledge and understanding that can explain things to you. Another big aspect of theory that people often overlook is researching your own experiences. If you've found something, if you've got lucky with something or experienced something, go and research it. What actually happened? What was that? You know, I got lucky. Well, don't leave it at that. Find out what happened. Why do you consider yourself lucky with what happened? What did you feel? What changed? What did you do differently? And why would that have had the positive effect that it had, or the negative effect, depending on the result? So research your experiences as well. That will really help you and your brain make the link between what you're feeling, what you're seeing, and what's actually happening. If you can combine the practical side of concentrating, paying attention, putting in the time, with the theoretical side of reading, watching, researching, then you will have a very good toolkit for progressing at quite a good rate. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen every day or overnight, but what it does mean is you will not be wasting time. Your training and your practice scheme and your schedule will be very effective and very efficient. So if you're able to combine these and put in the energy that it takes for that, then you will be progressing. Now, for me, this is a hobby. I'm not trying to get there first. This is not a race for me. But if I'm going to spend the time on something, then I want to make sure I do it efficiently. So I don't have much time to spend on lockpicking, but the time that I do have, I really do try to do constructively. And hopefully that'll help me progress and help me open this damn Abus lock someday. One of the big risks, of course, is turning something into a chore. Like I mentioned, this is a hobby for me. I don't have much time for it. I enjoy it when I do it, and I don't want to start hating it. So I really don't want to make it a chore. I want to enjoy it, and the best way to enjoy something is to be achieving goals. Now, if you don't want to go all out on it, then keep your goals achievable. Keep them fairly low level, and you will still be achieving goals, but you'll be achieving them at a rate which will keep you happy. Now, if you set the goals too high, then the time between setting the goal and achieving the goal will be too long. And if that time gets too long, then it becomes a chore. It becomes prone to frustration. You'll start to find that you're not progressing because you don't achieve any goals, you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. And that could really cause frustration and irritation for people. I've had times as well that I've just had to stop. I have to just put it away, not think about it, and do something else for a while because I'm just not getting any further. That can happen with a good built training schedule. That's not impossible. It doesn't mean that if you stick to all the rules you're never going to experience frustration. You will, most likely. But if you use a properly set up method, and if you adhere to some basic rules and understandings, then you're less likely and you're less prone to deal with frustration on a really large scale. Now, when inevitably you will, when you get frustrated or annoyed or angry at whatever it is you're doing, you're going to have to start understanding that. You're going to have to recognize it and take breaks. If you don't do that, then you're going to stagnate not just in your progress, but many things are going to suffer. Your technique will suffer as well, most likely. I was having a lot of trouble with this 8540. As I said before, I still haven't opened it. But what I noticed was when I went back to locks that I'd previously opened, was that I wasn't able to open these locks anymore. Now, of course, that immediately skyrockets your frustration into stratosphere, but what I noticed was that I was picking up bad habits from not being able to open this lock. Since I never got the positive feedback of the lock opening, I started to change my technique in the hope that it would open the lock. But what I was doing was I was teaching myself a really bad and poor technique. So as soon as I went back to locks that I could previously open, the damn things wouldn't open. Because I was pushing way too hard and I had way too much tension on there and the pins were oversetting and it was a mess. And of course, I immediately recognized what the problem was. So I had to take a step back. I had to reassure myself that what I'd previously learned was not lost or gone. And I had to relearn, or at least fine-tune my technique again back to where it should have been. Back to light touch, light tension, and actually waiting for the feedback to tell me what's going on, instead of me trying to force the lock open by just pushing the pins through the outside of the casing. So, if you deal with stagnation and frustration, take a step back. Go back, reassure yourself of the skills you've previously learned. Make sure that your technique hasn't changed, or that your technique is at least improved or not deteriorated like mine did. And that should be enough reassurance and enough enjoyment again to start with some fresh courage and to start with your head high on your next challenge. You're going to have to spend the time on that though. It will take a bit of time. These breaks are necessary. They will extend your progress. They will make everything go a little bit slower, but that's fine. At the end of the day, we're not here to make a lot of money out of it. We're not here to, at least for me, I'm not going to make a job out of this. This is my hobby. I want to do this for fun. So I don't mind realizing that it might take me a bit longer than I initially expected. Having said that, I also don't have a timeline set up for anything. So some people might want to do that, especially for other skills that are a little bit more, let's say, determined. You might be able to predict when you'll be able to do something, which I find very difficult for lockpicking. But use your time efficiently. But don't be afraid of losing some time. As long as it's not wasted time, you're not really losing the time. If you have to take a break or a step back or start again from the basics, that's fine. That's not wasting time. That's just extending the achievement of your goal. So, one thing though, do not half-ass it, because then you'll start wasting time. If you sit on the sofa, like I mentioned, watching TV, kind of half-assly picking a lock, that's wasting time. You're going to feel like you've put in the minutes, but you're not actually going to achieve anything with it. So to summarize this episode, I've talked about practice and skill retainment, the two different parts. You learn to walk before you run, but when you learn to run, don't forget how to walk. And I've also talked about frustration and the lack of progress, how to deal with that, how to make sure that you don't actually deteriorate the technique that you've already learned, and that you know how to deal with this frustration to actually stop stagnation of progress. I hope that hasn't been too dry or too boring. I would be happy to elaborate on any of these subjects if you wish. It's been kind of difficult to explain this all in reasonable time. I hope it hasn't been too long. So if there's anything you want to know, let me know. And thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through, congratulations. And I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.